the show itself, makes someone feel good no matter how many times they watch it.
So the fact that it means just as much or more to the people that we made it for is the best possible prize that you can have.
I think what's so special about the reunion concerts for me, and the Liverpool one in particular, is just reconnecting with everybody on an emotional level.
There are no words that somebody who cherishes something that you were a part of.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, how often does that happen in life?
I think I do understand it, because I think the show was about giving people permission to follow their dreams.
To know that 30 years later, can't believe it's been that much time. People still love the show. I'm starting to replay my episodes from the beginning on my social media sites, and it comes back to them like it was yesterday. It's awesome.
I think my favorite song to sing is Beautiful Dreamer. It just will always be my favorite song to sing. And to perform, the most fun was Suspense, which you guys have only seen like in the YouTubes, right? And to perform was Running with the Night.
No, we saw Suspense because we got up to season 4 here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So saw Suspense, and then Running with the Night, which was like, it just felt like I finally got to do kind of like what Erica would get to do. I got to do, I got to do like grown up girl, stuff.
Well, of course, I didn't sing, and I still don't sing. I mean, I seriously don't sing.
Okay.
I guess my favorite song is Star Maker. I mean, everybody loves Star Maker.
I knew you were going to say that, because that was, and still is to this day, one of the most emotional things I've ever seen. And then the real story of it didn't come out until years later. We didn't realize what was really going on.
Yes, it was so powerful. I mean, we all knew that Michael was dying, and we all loved him.
So I don't have a favorite Fame song. My favorite Fame song is any song that I see a castmate of mine singing, because there's such great vocalists, and just watching them makes me happy, watching them sing. So I don't have one particular song, but I just love watching everybody sing. I think, wow, these people are really good.
I loved when you sang Dogs in the Yard.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love that. And I was gutted that you didn't sing Do the Gimme That. Because I think that invented New Wave. Forget Moya, forget Duran Duran, do the Gimme That.
That might have killed New Wave.
I think it would probably be It's Love I'm After All, the song that I sang with Carrie Hamilton, just because, that was such a dear, sort of sweet little song, which was unlike most of what we did on the show, and mostly because, Carrie was just such a wonderful spirit, and that little moment that we got to have together was kind of special at the time, and even more special now that she's gone.
The very first one they had me do, because it summed up everything I was feeling, and it was called A Place Where I Belong. Oh. And it talked about, I'm afraid, this is not what I imagined, it's nothing that it was supposed to be, but I've come too far. I can't turn back now. I need someone to love, and I need someone to be strong for, and I need this place. So yeah, that's my favorite song.
My favorite song from Fame right now is Star Maker.
Yeah.
I never got to sing it in the episode. It is a song that I had to learn for the reunion concerts. But I think it just, the emotion of it is just quintessential Fame. And I actually prefer doing it a cappella with the group when we're casually in rehearsal the most.
Well, obviously not in Kansas anymore. But that being said, also too, Reflections, which was the episode I directed. That's where Holly has anorexia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I directed that.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So that was also like just an incredible, it was an incredible experience. It was incredible working with Cynthia on it. And Donna McKechnie was in that playing her mother.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really great. It was really great. And I did this beautiful piece. It's Donna McKechnie and Debbie Allen.
Yeah.
It's this dance in front of a mirror.
My favorite episode of all time. Oh my gosh. It's the series, right? I'm gonna say To Tilted Windmills, because I got to do a scene with Jesse and we did my second favorite song, a duet, Easy to Believe.
Oh yeah, I love that song. I didn't know that song until the Liverpool convention, when I got to sing it with you on that Saturday night when we partied.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you loved singing with Jesse? Yeah.
Oh, everybody. That was my favorite. Also, the one that was called A Different Drummer. That was the one with Carrie Hamilton.
Yeah.
Carol Burnett's daughter.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites too. Yeah. They brought my father in, and a man to play my father. So I got to explore a little bit more about who Dusty is. So that was one of my favorite ones.
One of my favorite episodes, I have many, but one of them was in the first season, and I think it was called The Strike.
Yes.
It was the episode with Desdemona.
Where you were coaching Leroy.
Yes. And I loved that episode because I actually coached Gene on how to do that speech from Othello. Mm-hmm. And first I had to catch him, but I caught him. And we spent about an hour working on it, and it was good. And he understood it all, and it was good. And then we came to film it, and I sat down next to the camera and watched. And I just thought, how does he do that? Where did that come from? He brought a world to it that was way beyond what I had taught him. It just blew me away.
The thing I remember about that episode is that I think that was the first time you saw the chemistry that the two characters had, and that as actors, you and Gene had with each other, because it was dynamite chemistry. Yeah. You know, it was like from two characters from such different backgrounds that got each other, and Leroy respected Miss Sherwood, and she actually saw something in him that nobody had seen before. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful relationship, and the chemistry was incredible on screen. Was it like that off screen as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Another wonderful story about that is we had the scene where he comes to ask me if I would tutor him. He says, "Do you ever toot?" And I say, "I beg your pardon." And they shot my side of it first. And then my side, he reached in his pocket and he said, "I have $6.27. Will that be enough?" And that was very moving. I said, "That'll buy you as much as you can use." But when they shot him, he reached in his pocket and he said, "I have $6. And then he reached in his other pocket and said, "And 27 cents, will that be enough?"
I think it was probably the Ian's Girl episode where Ian's ex-girlfriend comes over from England with the band that he used to play with, and he's really torn between his studies there and his old life as a punk rock guitar player and singer. And so I got to be, I'm pretty sure, one of the first people on American television to not only wear a Sisters of Mercy t-shirt on the air, but to sing a Sex Pistols song on American television.
What Sex Pistols song was it?
No Feelings.
And a Sisters of Mercy t-shirt.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
The temple
I
of
had a Bauhaus T-shirt in that episode. I had a
Wow.
Sisters of Mercy T-shirt. I was bringing the goth.
One of my favorite episodes to shoot was the one where I spent the majority of the time in a green unitard with a tutu around my head, and I was dressed up as a flower for one of the school plays. It was one of the funnier ones. We, of course, Bill Blinn had us touching on a variety of topics. Sometimes we had very serious episodes, and sometimes we had more comedic ones. And I just remember that one being so funny. My favorite to shoot were always the ones that we did on location in Manhattan.
Wow, yeah.
There is nothing like having the street shut down and having music blasted, just blast out through the streets of New York, and then hearing Jaime or Marguerite or whoever, or Earth's 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you're just like dancing in the middle of the street or in the subway or jumping in the fountain or being at Tavern on the Green. Shooting the episodes on location in Manhattan were my very, very favorite times.
I think that the before in Liverpool at the reunion, before I arrived, I think they recreated the Dancing in the Streets as part of the convention. I think they went out and did body language through the streets of Liverpool. I don't think they jumped into any fountain or anything. It was a bit cold, but yeah, a bunch of 50-somethings all dancing through the streets of Liverpool.
Well, doesn't James Corden have like one of his pranks that he does for his show is going out and stopping traffic in New York? And I think he did a Fame version where everybody had like leg warmers and headbands on, and they went out and they, during a red light, they dance out into the crosswalk,
Right.
where people are allowed to cross the street. And then when the light changes, they all have to run away really fast. And I think he did one that was a Fame takeoff. It was hilarious.
That's going to go horribly wrong one day, isn't it? It's going to go. We're going to hear about that in the news one day, James Corden.
Yeah, if you've ever tried crossing the street in Manhattan, yeah.
He wouldn't get away with that in Glasgow, I tell you.
I would have to say it was the episode where Gwen Verdon played my mother.
Oh.
I mean, how often do you get to work with the truly iconic Broadway superstar legend? I am not worthy. I am not worthy. It was, there's nothing more to say than you're working with the greats of all time and how blessed and lucky you are to be in the room with them. Absolutely. And to learn what it's like to be a professional. Yeah. She showed up, she knew her lines, she did her work, she was fantastic. She couldn't have been nicer to me. I treated her like crap. I said, what are you doing? I don't know.
It was such a postcards from the edge relationship as well.
It was. I was drunk all the time. It was terrible.
Oh, well, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, it's really easy. I know exactly what she'd be doing right now. And I sort of wrote this I at one point wrote a treatment for it. If we did the version that everybody does now of like, well, where would they be now? She'd absolutely be a family therapist. She'd absolutely be a family therapist.
Yeah.
She would have had enough sense when probably her career would have been somewhat limited.
Okay.
But I think she's a family therapist who still like sings and does comedy and open mic nights.
Okay.
And like she sings to her children. You know, that's where I think she was, because I think she was smarter than me.
Okay. She was, well, yeah. She kind of was in amongst everyone's business, wasn't she? She was the problem solver.
Well, yeah. And I think that she probably, as she knew more than I did, she probably would have known not to go looking for wholeness in show business.
Oh yeah, because it doesn't exist.
It doesn't, not real. It's not easy.
It's not easy. It's
I have this thing that I wrote, which is what everybody's doing when we are adults. It's great.
You know what every character's doing now.
So what I wrote when I was working on this with a friend of mine, what I wrote was, okay, so The Danny relationship is still the Danny relationship, is that she was married. She was married to the guy with the, she has the baby in the last episode. You know, she has Jenny baby, who's Taylor in real life.
Yeah.
And then she, on top of being a family therapist, she's lesbian. I wrote that too. But she's always, you know, she and Danny dated on and off for years. And, you know, he's a guy who can't stay in a relationship for a really long time. And of course, that's just the opposite of the reality of Carlo. And, and then they decide they want to have another child. So they go to Danny and they say, this is your opportunity to really be a father. And so that was that. And Erica is enormously successful, but she's also suffering the stuff from being enormously successful. And Pierre Paul Montgomery is her manager. And Bruno is a composer. I mean, it's everything that you really think he would have been. He's a composer, he's successful, he still knows her. And then, you know, when I wrote for Jean, you know, in some ways, you know, what we did was I wrote The Big Chill because by the time I wrote this, Jean wasn't alive anymore.
Yeah.
I really wrote it like, this is where we come back together. We come back for that memorial.
Yeah.
And let's see, who else? Nia, Nicole, working, but like, you know, having to, what? I know she died in the series too, right? So, but she died after I left, so I didn't know she died. So the way I had written her was, she was just up against the wall of how she was being cast, but she was clearly brilliantly, she was fighting that fight and constantly deciding, is this where I want to be? Is this not where I want to be?
Okay.
And, you know, with Erica, she's on a hit series. She's, you know, she's doing her stuff. And let's see, what I'm forgetting somebody.
Holly.
Oh, Holly. What was Holly doing? I'm trying to remember. I don't think I can remember, but it was so funny because when we did this thing together where we did Satellite, you know, she'd gone to college for business.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll have to look back at this thing because I can't remember kind of what everybody else was doing. But where we're brought back together is that they're closing the School of the Arts.
Okay.
You know, which eventually they did. They kind of hybrid the two.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that was just, you know, stuff.
I love that. I think you've got to do it. Where was Julie Miller? What happened to her?
Concert cellist.
Concert cellist.
I mean, absolutely, concert cellist. And I think, you know, it was a little bit like Laurie's story, which is, you know, she comes from a family of musicians and all they do is that.
Right.
You know, so it's an interesting, you know, it's always an interesting thing because that was her place where she was completely fluid.
Yeah.
Oh, she's raising 6 kids on a farm somewhere. Milking cows and collecting eggs.
What is it that happened? Because we didn't get anything after season 4 in the UK, but I remember seeing something on YouTube and Holly was in soap that they were all watching. What was it? Is that how she got written out?
Yeah, and that was like a little wink private joke that the producers did because when I got hired to do the show, I was on a soap.
Okay.
I was on a soap opera called Search for Tomorrow for 2 years prior to working on Fame. And my contract, interestingly enough, was just expiring on the soap, and they were about to renegotiate to keep me there, which was unbelievable to me because I kept thinking I was going to be fired. But right before they could renegotiate my soap contract, I got Fame.
Wow. So
I went from one into the other. But that was a private joke that they made, was that Holly was so, and also that, you know, Holly was so shallow that, you know, she would go off and do a soap. Whereas, you know, Michael Cerveris goes on to do Shakespeare, but I went off to do a soap.
I think she has retired to Nantucket. And Nantucket is an island off the coast of New England.
I only know it from the limerick.
Yep. And I think that's where she lives. When I'll tell you a quick story. When they were going to shoot my apartment, Miss Sherwood's apartment, and I lived in New York, and I thought, well, these writers, they're Californians, they won't know. So I went and said, all right, I went to the executive producer, Bill Blinn, and I said, all right, now let's talk about my apartment because I have some ideas about what it should be. And he said, oh, okay, this is what I've written, see what you think. And I read his description of my apartment and said, oh, well, that just about covers it. He'd written
Fantastic.
exactly what I thought. But there was I borrowed from a friend of mine a poster of Nantucket, and it was on the wall because I just always thought that Elizabeth Sherwood went to Nantucket. I don't know how to explain it, but
That's where she is. That's where
was.
she is.
If that role was real, she would definitely be a teacher at the Fame at the Fame High School. She would definitely be the music teacher. She would be working all those musical numbers, making sure the students have their songs right. If we do a reboost or remake, I want to be a teacher on the show.
You could be the new. You could be the new Sharovsky.
Could not. I always thought that would be lead, but there would be like a new role for the woman who just gets people ready for singing specifically, right?
Yeah,
I would love that.
a singing teacher version of Lydia.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think he'd be making Baba Ganoush. I think that he might be a record executive or a producer or a singer-songwriter. I kind of think that's where he would be. I think he'd be on his second or third marriage.
Okay, so he's a mogul because that's.
And I also believe that he would be best friends still with Doris.
That's what Val said, but she also said that you would be Coco's manager.
Well, that's pretty close. Actually, I was managing Coco, but I couldn't deal with it, so I had to let her go. Smart.
Awesome, wonderful. So he's in because he was like that, and the character was like that. He was organizing stuff and auditioning.
Absolutely. Danny asked me to marry him, to manage him, and I said absolutely not. No, absolutely not. And by the way, I love both of those people dearly, and they're exceptionally beautiful people.
Okay.
As opposed to the rest of the cast, not very nice.
Right. Okay.
I think he would have had, a career for a while, a semi-successful career as a musician, but would have somehow self-sabotaged himself and shot himself in the foot by just not being willing to go along with, whatever the label said or whatever his manager said, or, he would have walked off stage like at Madison Square Garden or something, dramatic and iconoclastic, and now would probably be playing gigs in small venues and maybe running like a music store on the side, a record store on the side, and being a little bitter about about how things went, but living life his own way.
My first memory is we shot the pilot in a school in New York on 10th Avenue, and a school that was not being used as a school anymore. And of course, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what was going on. And I got in this, we were changing clothes or something, and there was this little heap of a girl in the corner crying. And I went over and said, "Excuse me, are you all right?" Well, it was Bronwyn Thomas.
Oh.
And they had asked her to bring in some ballet costumes that she had. So she brought in a couple. and they were going to change them. They were going to, make them different.
Yeah.
And she said, but my mother made them for me. And her mother had died.
Oh, bless.
And she didn't think she had the right to say, no, you can't change them. And it was like, aha, here's something I can do. So I said, we're going to fix this. And I went to Marilyn Maxwell, our costume designer. And of course she understood. Of course she wouldn't change them. But that's my first memory. I also remember Val. I remember seeing Valerie, and she was sitting and talking, and I thought, wow, she's great. She's really sophisticated. She seemed to know all about everything, and I didn't know anything.
Oh, it's really easy. The first scene I shot was on a bus. It's the scene in the pilot where we're on a bus, and Pierre Paul and Lori were together, and she's kind of standing here. I'm standing here. I'm talking to PR, and a guy gropes her from the back, and she kind of goes like this, like, oh my God,
Mhm.
and then we in that moment we teach her that this is why you always carry a cup of coffee, so that you have a defense measure.
Uh-huh.
But that's the first day. And I remember what I was wearing. I remember this coat I was wearing, and I had this hat on. And Paul, I had first met Paul, and we were like instantaneously friends.
Uh-huh.
We still are. I was on the phone with him yesterday. And yeah, that was the beginning. And, the other thing was, Fran Drescher, ended up playing the smaller part in the pilot. And she was so funny. And she was married to her husband, Peter, at the time. And she would be like, Peter, where's my bag? And Fran was just so funny. She was so great. And she would go like this, like someone would tell a joke and she'd go, I don't get it. So, and I remember going in this movie that was a Dan Aykroyd movie. And I just turned to the casting director and the producers. I said, there is a girl named Fran Drescher, and you need to call her in for this role because she is who you are looking for.
Yeah.
My first memory of being on the set was when we did shoots in New York. We would always go to New York every summer. So that was the first time I shot with them before I even got to MGM.
Mhm.
All those people, all the different parts that have to come together to make a show. I had no idea it was that massive. The crew, the crib, the way that they could block off streets.
Mhm.
That was just overwhelming for me and wonderful at the same time. And everybody was so sweet.
Filming in the streets of New York. I mean, that you've arrived, haven't you, if you're filming in New York? You're like, I'm a movie star.
New York on someone else's dime. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was amazing.
Were you nervous?
Absolutely. I mean, Pueblo, Colorado is where I'm really from. They took that from my life. And I didn't even know I was country. People used to say, you're so country. I'm like, no, I'm not. I grew up in a city. I had no idea I was country till I left.
Country, I'm a little bit rock and roll.
I didn't even know I had like a little country twang till I got to New York, and there's just a lot I had to catch up on.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I had to catch up a lot on my heritage as a person of color.
Right.
Because there was like 1 to 2% people of color living in Pueblo where I lived.
Uh-huh.
And my parents didn't focus on that. They just said, be the best you can be.
Mhm.
And to them, that was never an issue. So of course we had Black History Month and we knew about those things, but some of the street things that I guess most Black people would know, no clue. I had to learn all that after I got out of Pueblo.
Wow.
Oh, I remember my first week at work vividly. The first time I had to report, I want to say, was to the recording studio, which was terrifying. I mean, I had been in choir at school before. I had been in a few private lessons before, but never a recording studio.
Was it still Barry Fazman on season 3?
it was Barry Fosman, and
Yeah.
and it was the music video. It's a rock and roll world. It's a rock and roll world. We did that before we started shooting the season.
Okay.
And so actually that was like insanely cool because music videos were barely a thing yet. So to be a part of one, it was like just that much more intimidating. But I showed up at the studio and I remember being completely overwhelmed. And I turned to Barry at that point and I'm like, I need a vocal coach. And he gave me a name and number on a piece of paper. And I studied with that man for 30 years. I stayed with him. I mean, he's been my only vocal coach for all these years. I just talked to him. It was his birthday like a week ago, but I had my last lesson with him. And it made exactly 30 years of studying with the person that Barry sent me to. But again, I'm on a tangent. Getting back to my first day on set was actually in a dance rehearsal with Debbie, which was terrifying, Debbie Allen, because she's like, boom, 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 do it, let's go now. And I was like, I can't. And I was sitting there warming up, trying to appear to not be terrified. And one of the dancers comes up to me, big smile, bounces up, sits down next to me, and she says, "Hi, I'm Kim." And she was my god sister. So my mother and Kim's mother were best friends and dancers in Vermont, in a tiny little town in Vermont, which is a farming area, in the mountains in the northeast of the United States. And my mother and Joyce Hurley were best friends because they were both dancers. And when I was born, Joyce and her husband Gordon were named my godparents. But Joyce and Gordon soon thereafter moved to California, and my family moved to Connecticut, and I never met the Hurleys, or certainly don't remember. I was in diapers the last time I saw them. So there I am, my very first day in dance rehearsal, so scared and felt so out of place. And Kim Hurley comes bouncing up to me and says, "Hi, I'm Kim." And she was my first friend on set.
Wow.
And then it was either a year or two later that her younger sister finally graduated from high school and was invited to join as a famed dancer as well. And that's Melissa, who's now Melissa Cassidy, and she's married to Patrick Cassidy. And Patrick's mother, Shirley, was one of my TV moms. Shirley Jones
Shirley Jones.
Yeah. Shirley Jones was one of my TV moms.
I need to collapse for a second. Hang on, sorry.
So, but isn't this like the small worldness of it is so crazy, Tom? There's no way, like, except that, God planned it, that Melissa and Kim were both on Fame. And they were my god sisters, and at that point I reconnected with their parents, so I finally knew my godparents. But then when Melissa married Patrick, that was around the time that Shirley was playing my mom on a series, and I started getting invited to like the wedding shower or the baby shower at Shirley's house, and we were neighbors, which we didn't know. She and I lived on the same street.
Right.
And so she was, as you would imagine, the most gracious lady ever. I remember when she found out that we were neighbors, and she said, "If you ever need anything, you need to borrow a cup of sugar, just come on by."
Borrowed a cup of sugar from Shirley Jones. That's the campus thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I swear to God. And she was so sweet. We were neighbors for several years after that, and went to Halloween parties at her house, or as you said, like the baby showers or whatever. But like, so small world. But I was really grateful for Kim that first day because she was the first friendly face.
It's funny. I would assume it was when we did it has to be when we did the pilot, and we shot it at a high school in New York City called Harron High, which was right across the street from where I went to high school, a professional children's school. And I'm guessing it was dance rehearsal, when we first walked in there. And it's funny how you remember things. The one thing that I remember was the dancers or Debbie talking about the floor of the lunchroom, because it was an actual floor and it was concrete, and how difficult it was on everybody's feet to dance on that floor. I don't know why that stays with me, but that's sort of one of those bizarre things, those little pieces of life that you just can't get out of your head.
Because there was a year between the pilot and season 1, wasn't there?
Yes, we had no idea what was going on, and all of a sudden the show got picked up, and I'm going to work. Okay.
My first memory is we did 2 weeks, I think, of filming in New York before at the beginning of the season to do bits of establishing shots and location stuff around New York before going back to Los Angeles to film the bulk of the series. So my first day on set, after my audition, which did not involve any dance, I just played guitar and sang and did a scene or two. And I was told a number of times that this character wasn't really going to dance, so they didn't need to see me dance. They asked if I could move okay, and I said, if it's absolutely necessary, but that's about it. And so after being told that this was not a dancing character, my first day of work was in a rehearsal for a big Fame dance number. And I was just immediately out of the gate completely traumatized, and everybody else was like in full high production gear,
all these big characters,
all these big characters and a flood of dancers, and everybody knew what they were doing, and I was trying to hang out at the back and just follow along as best I could, and they kept sort of trying to move me up, and that was the day that Carrie Hamilton and I sort of cemented our friendship, because she could see the panic on my face and came and really took me under her wing and sort of said, look, I was the same way. I was never supposed to really dance, and I got dragged into this, and it'll be okay. And Jaime Rogers, the choreographer, is really good at figuring out how people are comfortable moving and working, to their strengths. And so she kind of talked me off the ledge that first day, but I remember it vividly.
I loved the episode where Lydia and Elizabeth swapped jobs, and Miss Sherwood was teaching dance and Lydia was teaching English. I just thought that was dynamite, absolute dynamite. And they had such a beautiful relationship, these two characters as well.
Absolutely, and it was real. It was absolutely real. Debbie is to me, to this day, and even I mean, she is just somebody that I admire and respect more than just almost anybody I can think of.
Yeah, she's dynamite, isn't she?
In the world that we live in.
Well, I was thinking about these things. There's 3 really funny things. One is, and thank God Paul found this clip, which is Paul and Lee and I trying to get through a very, very simple scene that is just Lee's in the practice room and he's on the keyboard, and Paul is there and he's mad at him. I can't remember what it's about. I'm there, in between it. And we cannot stop laughing. And we stop and then we start again. And we never, I don't know if we ever got through this. And there's a voice that you hear in the background, which is Bob Shearer, who is directing, come on, okay, we can do this. That's the one. It makes me laugh every time I see it. Then I'm standing in front of a door. It's just me standing in front of it. I think it's the door of the drama room. Mm-hmm. And I'm having a reaction to something that's happened. So, and just as it's like we're rolling and everything gets really quiet, I fart. It's just it's one of those farts that just slips right out of you and you can't stop it. And all I could do is just look up and go, well, I guess this lets you know that I'm very comfortable with it. And then the last one is always the funniest thing to me is Erica and I try to assert ourselves with Debbie. And that's when we're in, This Is America. And I'm in a trash bag spacesuit that is boiling me alive. And Erica is in a is in a wetsuit with a mask on the top of her head while we're doing this number. Retribution. So those are the three things that I always remember.
Oh my God. I've been asked that question many times, and I've been sworn to secrecy because most of them involve illicit substances.
Now's the time. Now's
the time. Not certain people have to pass away, and they're all much younger than me.
Okay, so we need to wait for the book.
You know what? Again, the funniest thing that ever happened, I've told the story before, was, first of all, Lee and I were like Laurel and Hardy. We just couldn't wait. We had to, what can we do now? That kind of a thing around it. And we would just sort of giggle with each other. And we got caught stealing a cart from the MGM police department, the golf cart.
Okay.
And we drove it around, I guess, and parked it in a smart place. Instead of hiding it somewhere, we parked it in front of our little cubicles. So it wasn't difficult to figure out who stole it. And then they came and put me in handcuffs, told Lee he'd never work in this town again. I got 6 weeks in the MGM jail.
What?
Basically, you have to watch old movies and eat popcorn.
Oh, right. Okay. See, I believe everything everybody tells me, Paul. That's amazing.
Oh, I can't tell you that.
Come on. Come on. If it's too bad, I'll edit it out.
No, there are definitely a lot of things that I can't tell you.
Tell me one that I'm
one of the funnest things. No, two of the funnest things that come to mind are the show. Doing the show was so much like the movie. Mm-hmm. For example, going to dance rehearsal, like we were on the MGM lot, and we had everything was self-contained. Like we had our dressing rooms, and we had the hair and makeup trailer, a wardrobe trailer. We had several sound stages we would use, and then the dance rehearsal hall was down the other end of the lot. And dance rehearsals were hilarious. I mean, when Debbie was there, she was keeping us very disciplined. But the minute she walked out of the room, mayhem would ensue. And there were basketball hoops up in that space. Carla would start playing hoops. Her husband would pop in from time to time, and he was a professional basketball player, so he'd start playing hoops with the guys. And the music would be blasting, people would be eating, people would be like messing around. People on the lot who worked at MGM who were not part of the show would stop by because it was such a party. And it was like mayhem. People dancing and laughing and partying, and even I remember Nate, who was Gene Anthony Ray's bodyguard. Nate drove up in between the trailers were here, and the trailers with the makeup and hair were here, and the trailers for the dressing rooms were here, and it created a corridor, and a car could fit through them. And I remember Nate, he was probably bringing Gene to set one day, pulls up, and his windows are down, and the music's blasting, and he puts it in park. And everybody kind of poured out of the dressing rooms and out of the trailers and jumped on the car and in the car and on the sidewalk and just started dancing, just like the movie. Oh. And I think that was my first season, and I remember just going, "Oh my God, I'm in the movie. I'm in the movie."
I think probably one of the funniest episode or numbers to film was Jesse Borrego and I doing this "Your Wife's Been Cheating on You Again" song, where we think that this guy in a hospital room is this big producer guy, and so he and I finagle our way into the hospital room and do a number that we've prepared for him to try to get him to represent us or put our show on. And it's this weird cowboy kind of song, and I ended up because Ian was supposed to be British, I figured, well, if I'm looking for a British version of a country singer, I'll just base it on Mick Jagger doing like Wild Horses or something. So that's where my performance is. But I remember that number being one of the more ridiculous ones that Jesse and I did, and it was a laugh.
I'm gonna have to go and look for that now.
Yeah,
I want to see that.
It involves a fake hand at some point.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll look forward to that. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I believe a rubber chicken, I think.
Right.
Oh, I shared this with everybody when we were together in Europe.
I know
when
what this is.
Anthony Ray and Carlos stole my chair.
Tell us about that.
Gave me my fame chair. It was like near the end of the series. Well, season 6, they closed everything down, and we thought they were going to give us a lot of our stuff, and they were saying no, they're not going to give us our chairs. And we're like, it's our names on them. What are you going to do with it? Who else is going to use a chair that says Loretta Chandler? They said no, they weren't going to give it to us. But Leroy and Carlos said, don't worry about it. If you want your chair, I'm going to make it work out for you. And so, the sound stages are huge, these big, huge, giant walls, like 20, 30 feet high. They had ropes, they had pulleys, they had pulled that thing over the wall and sent it back down on the other side. I got my chair. And I'll send you a picture of it. You can put it in.
Who got it for you?
Gene Anthony Ray and Carlos.
They climbed up and got it.
They got the pulleys, they got the ropes, everything. They got it. I have my chair to this day.
First off, I was given the opportunity it was like being given a conservatory as an actor. It was like I really got to learn how to be in my feet as an actor, memorize, week after week after week, memorizing, growing the character, doing the work, working long hours, knowing how to show up for that kind of stuff. And so that was, part A. It gave me an education that other people got in college that I didn't get, and because I never went to college. And I had started to train a bit after I did Thank God It's Friday, but this really gave me the chance to watch myself on film, to see what that was like. And then the second thing is, so the later part is, this role wants to really carry itself out forever. And, so for me, what did I say? I wrote this down because right. Oh, well, and forget the fact that I was given the opportunity to direct, I was given the opportunity to write, all those things, but that this would have a really profound effect on people. And what I experienced, and I think I wrote this about Liverpool, was that what I experienced about that is not how I feel about having had that experience, but what I feel reflected back at me from that. And it's not an ego feeding proposition at all.
I get it.
It's just okay. And for me, someone who grew up with not a lot of great feelings about themselves as somebody who was going to succeed in the world, to know that I was able to do in some small way by just kind of reenacting my high school years, some of the most painful years of my life, as that character. And what she got to do was to be, what I got to do as that character was also healing me. So I think that was the other part. I got a little healed in the process of making the series, but I see how that worked in my life and the lives of others.
What I noticed when we had that convention in Liverpool, and I kind of arrived without knowing anything about it. I hadn't met anybody involved. I had just talked my way into it, and I got there, and what I realized was that all of the Fame fans that had arrived were all roughly the same age. We were all 50, and we had all been these kids in school. We had all been these slightly, I don't know, slightly different kids at age 13 or 14, which was what I was when season 1 started. And we all really connected, and we all got each other, and we all got, you know, and we all got Doris, and we all got Bruno, and it was.
Well, it's because both you and us we were all in the box of broken toys.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it made a huge difference to me. One way, I mean, well, the first way was that once you've been on television and once you've held a role and you are recognizable, then you have a better chance of playing leading roles places. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
What I have always loved to do, my really favorite thing to do is theater. And I love working in the regional theater because that's where you get to do Shakespeare and Shaw and Jacobean plays. And that's what I love.
Yeah.
So after I was playing leading roles, I was doing very well. And I'd done a bunch of Broadway and a bunch of off-Broadway. But after I was on Fame, then my stock went up, certainly. The other thing, which nobody ever told me, and now I'm able to tell my students, in this country, if you're going to make a living, you're going to have to do film and television, because you cannot really make a kind of living to support a family or anything. The theater just doesn't pay enough. So, and having done that, and now because I'm so old, I get a pension from the Screen Actors Guild. I get a pension. And nobody ever told me what, but that made it possible. Well, being in Fame made it possible for me to buy my house here in Tennessee, and it helps support me now.
Yeah.
So it was huge.
At the time, it was just a job, but like everything, you know, that comes with age, you know, there's the hindsight is 20/20, and I don't think I'd be doing any of what I'm doing now if it weren't for Fame. First of all, as I said, I would have enrolled in the acting classes anyway. I don't know that I certainly wouldn't have found my vocal coach, who I not only stayed with for private lessons for decades, but I studied vocal pedagogy with him for 8 years. And I teach now. It's the way I spend, you know, about 30 hours a week. I'm teaching singers, whether it's, you know, classical. I've got students who go to conservatory, or whether it's, you know, musical theater or whatever. That's how I spend the majority of my day, and I never would have done that without the show. And then dance, I had a love-hate relationship with dance. I mean, mostly with ballet. My mom was a ballet dancer, and I was in class all my life, and then I would just want a normal life and be with my friends. So I would quit. And then I'd miss it, and then I'd quit, and then I'd miss it, and then I'd quit. I never would have studied jazz or tap, I think, if it hadn't been for Fame. And once I got good at jazz, which I never was when I was on Fame. It was the year after, when I left the show, that I got advanced at jazz style, which is really, that's a big regret, that I was never able to actually really dance the way I ultimately was capable of dancing. But I don't think I would have done that if it hadn't been for Fame. And then the other, like, some of the best jobs in my career were because I had a dance and music background. I mean, Karen Carpenter's Story, right?
I've talked to you about this before. I adore that movie. Absolutely adore that movie. Well, but it must have been so weird to make.
It was really odd on lots of levels, and I can go into that if you want, or I won't go off on the tangent. But I will say that part of getting that job was because I could lip sync like nobody's business because of Fame. We all could, right? Yeah. We record our songs and then we had to lip sync them. And that sounds easy to do, but it's not easy to do it well. And I remember when I interviewed with Richard Carpenter that was part of, you know, that was part of the interview.
So it was after, I'm guessing the first show at night. After the show, we went back, we went in the front, and people paid money, which got donated to Clare House to take pictures with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was the first one out of the backstage. And as I walked, we had to go up a set of stairs to see everybody. There was this, what I thought was a little girl standing there. And she kind of looked like this. And she goes, can I have an autograph? And I looked at her, and she wasn't a little girl. And I said, absolutely. And she proceeded to say, she goes, 30 years ago, I wanted to go to the show, but my mother wouldn't let me because I was very sick. And so she goes, she proceeds to tell me she took a 6-hour bus ride to get there.
Oh.
A 6-hour bus ride to go home. And I'm assuming she had cerebral palsy or MS or something.
Uh-huh.
And the rest of the cast came out behind me. And I said, everybody, and to gather around her. She had a bunch of things. We all signed everything.
Oh.
We all took pictures with her. And in my mind, that had to be one of the great days of her life. And to be able to give somebody that, that was my favorite thing that happened there.
Well, the duet with us, everything that we did was special because it was unique. I wasn't really supposed to be coming, right? Because Erica Campbell was supposed to be coming. And all of a sudden I got all these extra things I get to do with you. That was very cool.
That was the big surprise, though, because it was such a kind of what's going on. You just kind of burst in and got on with it, and you came to the hotel. You were only meant to come down to the Saturday night party for 10 minutes, and you stayed the whole night pretty much dancing with everyone.
Yeah.
We had such a great party and such a good time. And it was, what I found was that I've stayed in touch with, because I'd never met anyone. I'd never met Sue, I'd never met Mark, I'd never met anything. No, I didn't know anything.
You guys knew each other this whole time.
No, I just arrived on the Saturday. I had talked my way into the job of hosting the convention. I had, yeah.
Good talk.
You need to just book me, just get me. I'll do it. I'll come down for free. I'll pay my own petrol, do everything. And went down, and I bonded with everybody there. So we've all stayed in touch. So all the people that were at the convention, really, it was as if we all knew each other. And that was what was lovely for us. And then at the concert, we were all just 15 years old again.
And all those kids from the school, that was amazing.
They were phenomenal. Yeah, they were fantastic.
They were. Yes, they were.
It was wonderful.
I think what's so special about the reunion concerts for me, and the Liverpool one in particular, is just reconnecting with everybody on an emotional level. Mm-hmm. That was the biggest reunion yet, with the most number of cast members, and I hope our next one even includes more people.
Yeah.
But it wasn't making the music or being on stage for me. It was just all being in the same space and still being connected somehow, and reconnecting on a personal and emotional level. Life, mm-hmm. Back then we were all young and more self-centered and, more entitled and life humbles you if you live long enough. Yeah. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you have or, how famous you are. Life, if you live long enough, humbles you. And all of us now come together just more whole human beings. And it's really great to be friends at this stage of life.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Oh, two things. One was when we were actually sitting around the table, kind of trying to duke out like what the script, because Sue had written the script, but we knew we needed to kind of, and it was really interesting because we went through a lot of changes and we had a lot of opinions, but it was really the first time that we were given an opportunity to really work with all of it and say, what really is going to work. And what's very funny is we all had this feeling about Step Up to the Mic. Like none of us wanted to do it.
I love that song.
I know, but it's really, it's like in our, up until that moment in our kind of vernacular, it was like the thing where we just went like, "Ay," and also because it was like, because of all the things that had like, our God is a living God, all these stuff. But what's so funny is when we tried it, then it was so interesting because it was so strong.
Yeah.
But so that was really great. And the other thing was, I met Matt Ricardo at who's a wonderful performer. And I met Matt at a Starbucks. Sue had done a meetup at a Starbucks and like 5 people came. And Matt was one of them when he was working in Covent Garden, like outside and doing his big show, his juggling show in Covent Garden. And we became friends. So later, now we're friends, and I come to London and we see each other. And he says, when I came to Albert Hall, and you weren't there because I was in Australia doing publicity, and I wasn't coming on the tour. And it was so disappointing. So my favorite thing was being able to say, I have a friend out here in the audience, and, he came to see it and I wasn't there, and he was so disappointed, and that's when I said, so Matt Ricardo.
Yeah. That was for when they recorded the live album, wasn't it? Yeah.
And he just sat in the audience, just, it was just great. It was great. If you've never seen him, you should go to his site.
Okay.
Matt Ricardo, M-A-T. He's a brilliant performer. Yeah.
Awesome.
Having been through end of life, not with a child, but a lot of people. And, in this country, in the US, they don't really do it. They think it's much better for children to always be at home the entire time. But what I saw they had created at Clare House was what made so much sense, which was, we are going to support all of you through this. And if you choose, because I'm sure not everybody does, but if you choose when you are in last days to be part of this, and they've come to know everybody. And the other thing is, when you have a child who has extraordinary needs, and that may be from a critical illness or a chronic illness or whatever it is, you're always terrified to leave them alone. And even when you get respite from a caregiver, they may not know that kid as well as somebody else. And so this was like an amazing process, but mostly you got to know the whole family, and everybody there works with all the members of the family. So that at a time, like, it's not just that you've lost a brother or a sister or a son or a daughter or a grandchild. You all are going to be placed in a position of grieving. And so to be in such a cradled environment, and hospitals are not really like that.
Yeah.
And hospice has not really been set up for children. And I think it's because people are really frightened of children's death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard. It's so hard to even, touch. It's it's hard. And so I think that, God bless Claire's parents, started with a garage sale.
Wow.
That's how they put money in from a garage sale and said, we're going to start this. And then the other piece is the 18 to 30 who have multiple diagnoses, must have full-time care all the time, but are people.
Yeah.
And so, they have this great room, like they have this place where what they do when they're there at that age is they do their therapies that they need to be done, all the stuff that needs to be done with them, but then they take them to the pub. They let them hang out with each other alone, and they have I think they have like sort of a panic button thing, but they let them alone. They let them fool around if they want to fool around. Do you know what I mean?
They let them be their age.
They let them be their age, and that's huge. And now, because of the convent that they've now gotten, because it's no longer a convent, but it's a great building. So I think this supposedly is where a lot of that is going to be.
Okay.
A lot of, chronic or a lot of those where you've got multiple diagnoses and you need multiple levels of care.
Mhm.
And you may never exist without care. It's just possible that you'll always have to have a caregiver of some kind.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I had a great friend. He passed a couple of years ago, but he was an Olympic volleyball player, and he was doing an exposition match in Italy, and he did a vault, and he came down on his head, and he broke his neck, and they nearly killed him in the process in Italy. And not that anybody, it was just not, it was hard to deal with. And he ended up a quadriplegic. And where he ended up was as a sportscaster. And he was also the person that when certain hospitals where he lived got somebody, and they knew as soon as they were brought in that they were going to be quadriplegic, spine was severed, whatever those things. He's the call. He's one of the guys they call, and he rolls in his chair. It's like this and goes, "Hi, I'm here to tell you, I'm just here to be with you, and to also tell you that there's at some point there's life after this."
Yeah, but by showing them.
Yeah, and I met him at a party, and he was so great. And he said, "Hey, if you don't mind feeding me, we could sit and have dinner." And I was like, "Great, I've been feeding my kids for years. That's not a problem." And so all of a sudden you're having a highly intimate relationship with 45-year-old, as you guys are doing. He says, that way my aide doesn't have to be with me and we can just talk. And
it's a real trust thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And so they've done an amazing job. It's extraordinary.
I think it's really wonderful that it continues to mean so much to so many people. It means that much to all of us as well, and I think that's kind of rare too. I mean, you do a lot of jobs. Part of it, I suppose, is it was at an early part in all of our careers, and we were young, and it was, a big deal for us at the time. But more than that, it was unlike working on pretty much any other kind of show. And so it always has had a really special place in my heart and in the hearts of everybody who works on it, as from talking to all of us.
Yeah.
So the fact that it means just as much or more to the people that we made it for is the best possible prize that you can have working on something like that. And it's great too that so many of the people are fans who were fans of it when they were younger and have just kind of carried that love for it on. But what's even more amazing is the people who didn't get to see it the first time around and have discovered it on later rebroadcasts or finding something on YouTube or their parents showing it to them or something. That's really, really kind of special too.
I think I do understand it, because I think the show was about giving people permission to follow their dreams. And that's huge. It's absolutely huge. Of course, we love the music. Of course, we love the characters. Of course, we love all of that. But what we really love is the faith that the kids have and the permission. It's okay to try to reach for whatever you want.
Yeah.
All I can say is I'm really grateful, because being on the show in the 80s was a gift in and of itself. But as I said before, because of the dedication of the fans that are still out there, it's the gift that keeps on giving. I don't know that I would. First of all, Paul and I never worked together, and we met doing the reunion concert in Los Angeles. We never worked together. I worked with Loretta for a minute, but because of these reunion concerts, I'm friends with people that I wouldn't have known otherwise.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. I am so honored and thrilled beyond. You just don't understand. To know that 30 years later, can't believe it's been that much time. People still love the show. I'm starting to replay my episodes from the beginning on my social media sites, and it comes back to them like it was yesterday. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Well, I think it's made up of two components. One is that the show itself, makes someone feel good no matter how many times they watch it.
Yeah.
And I certainly have that. I have that with a lot of things that I like. I have just movies. I watched Big Chill the other night again. I've seen Princess Bride like 22 times. I'm the person when I'm packing, I put on a movie like people put on a record.
I do that with Sound of Music.
So that there's that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other relationship to it is because, well, I think about the people that I've met in my career over the years. And so sometimes with these things that I love, I also have a connection to somebody, I may develop later in life a connection to somebody. I may meet them. I may just meet them and have an experience with them where I go, oh, that was like a really great experience.
There are no words that somebody who cherishes something that you were a part of.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, how often does that happen in life?
Almost never.
Sometimes my wife doesn't even cherish me. So,
she's making the baba ganoush. Come on, man.
No, she's making the baba ganoush. I cherish her.
Absolutely. Every single one. Whenever they ask, I am there.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My major...
Is that a promise, Michael?
If the major reason for ending the COVID pandemic is so that I can go have my reunion experience.
We'll try and get that sorted out then. I'll have a word with Boris. And
that'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
We'll get that sorted. So you get that sorted out.
Absolutely. I will not miss another one. I will not miss another one.
And will you give us homework? Will you give us an assignment?
I'll tell you, Tom, we all got together right before the pandemic to do a sort of autograph thing or whatever it was. And for me, I refer to them as the kids. They're not kids anymore, but everybody, they had all seen each other and been to Liverpool and been to Italy and all that. But it was the first time I had seen them in a long time. I had the most wonderful time. They have all grown up to be wonderful, interesting, warm, loving people. They're just, it was fabulous. So I can't wait to get together with them again.
We can't wait for you to come.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Do you know who else said yes? Carol's coming. Carol's gonna come next time.
That's so fun.
She's promised to give me an assignment and a deadline, and I'm gonna get into trouble if I don't meet it.
Yeah, watch out. Don't cross Carol.
I'm not gonna cross her.
How about next Tuesday?
Is that a yes?
That's it. It's an absolute yes. So looking forward to it.
Yes.
Not only that, I have a little personal plug.
Oh, go for it.
Okay, thank you. So I have a duet coming out. Probably not for a while. We just got a final mix of it today, with could be one of the famed characters, one of the famed people. We might have done a duet together, and it'll probably come out in May or June or something like that.
Come on, who is it? Tell us who it is.
What's that?
Tell us who it is.
Okay, it is. What do you think of that? And I have another song that I have coming out. I have 2 new songs coming out. We're going to try and do the video in a few months.
Are you working with Keko?
You know, on this one, I'm not. And Keko is amazing. And I look forward to working with him again.
Yeah.
I did do a song called Hot Times in the City with Keko.
I loved that. I loved that. It was fantastic.
And you can get that online, Hot Times in the City, PR Paul on YouTube. You can always get Satellite on YouTube. You can follow me on, this is how well good I am on social media. You can follow me on PR Paul Fame on Facebook. And no, that's PR Paul Fame on Instagram.
Oh.
And Paul Rosenbaum, PR Paul on Facebook. Like I said, we're going to hopefully, I'll be releasing a whole bunch of new music soon.
Wonderful.
And the most important thing is this: everybody be safe, get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And more importantly, keep smiling. Life is good. Don't look at the bad. Don't look at other people. Look at how lucky you are.
Why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't you?
I mean, because, you know, you can only take so much, people like extending love in your direction, you know.
Yeah,
You don't want to get too much of that, you know.
Absolutely not.
You don't want to. And I mean, who really likes performing with their friends? I mean, is that really a thing? I don't know.
It's a chore.
You know, all the travel, you know,
So that's a yes then.
That's a yes.
Awesome.